Okay? Then if not, we will stand up and sing the best we can. 2 times through, rise up, O flag. This is our
Showers of love and light, uniting us all by day and night. Proclaim thy light glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Thank you all, and thank you, Teresa. And so now let's honor the light within by greeting those standing nearby.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's get it right
We gotta keep that stamina going.
Next in our story for all ages. Anybody wants to take pictures? Come down closer. And I was not familiar with the character Rosie the Red, but as some of you know, Rosie the Red is an interesting young lady. So we're going to hear about Rosie the Red being me. Later in the service, we'll be hearing from Rob about his life journey. And so this is Rosie the Red in an early stage, figuring out what she's supposed to do or be. Rosie was up in her thinking tree, wondering about something. What should I be when I grow up? Rosie didn't know the answer, but she knew she didn't like the question. It sounded like she could only be something when she was grown up. That made Rosie feel unimportant, not very useful, a little smaller, as if she would only matter when she got big. How should I know what I want to be? She asked herself. I'm still a kid. Rosie's dad came outside. He could hear her talking to herself up in her thinking tree, but he couldn't see her. Rosie, where are you? Dad called. Up here, Dad. She flapped her red cape so he could spot her. Everything okay? He asked. Anything I can help with? Rosie came down and explained her problem. Her dad thought for a moment. Let's take a walk, he said. Maybe something will come to us. Rosie didn't need to think about that. They skipped and hopped and ran and talked for about 15 minutes. And then they stopped in front of an old, tired-looking building. Rosie'd never been here before. The sign out front read, "Welcome to the food bank." It says we're welcome, Dad. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go in and see what this is all about. Rosie took her father's hand and they walked up to the door. Inside was a huge warehouse and it was filled with activity. There were lots of people, some young, some old, and they were packing cartons with cans and packages of food. Hundreds and hundreds of boxes were piled up high. A man came up to greet them. "I'm Mr. Santino, the manager here. Would you like to see what's going on?" Without thinking, Rosie yelled, "Yes!" Both of the men laughed. Rosie could tell that something special was happening in this place. Mr. Santino showed him around, and he explained how the food cartons were packed. "Could I try?" Rosie wanted to know. She looked at her dad. Dad nodded. "I'd like to try too, if it's okay with Mr. Santino." Mr. Santino didn't answer, but he smiled and he handed each of them a carton. Because it was their first time, he stayed until they got the hang of it. At first, they were quiet as they counted cans and checked items off the list. Before long, Mr. Santino began chatting. "When I was of your age, both of my parents lost their jobs. If we didn't have enough to eat, we could come to a place just like this and get help. I will always remember the wonderful woman there who ran the food bank. She was so kind. I knew I wanted to help people too. I wasn't much older than you when I started volunteering there." Rosie felt important and useful, a little bigger, like she really mattered. "I knew I could do something before I grew up," she thought. When they were finished packing, Rosie and her dad helped load food boxes onto a truck. "Where's all the food going, Dad? To children in other countries?" "No, honey. They're hungry people all over the world, even right here in our town. So these boxes are going to them." Rosie tilted her head. And crash, she forgot where she was and what she was doing, and her carton hit the ground. Rosie bent to pick up the spilled cans, and she spotted a pair of worn sneakers. They looked just like her friend Sam's. In fact, they were Sam's. Rosie stood up to say hello, but Sam turned away and hurried over to his mother. To Rosie's surprise, Mr. Santino was giving Sam and his mom a box of food. For the rest of the day, Rosie worried about Sam. She hoped he was not embarrassed because his family needed food from the food bank, but she was pretty sure that he was. How could she make him feel better? What could she do? "Tilt your head, Rosie the Red," she said, and she did. She tilted it this way, she tilted it that way, and finally it worked. By bedtime, Rosie had a plan. At school the next day, Rosie waited until everyone was drawing pictures during their art time. Dagmara and Sam were both at her table, but Sam had not looked at Rosie all day. She took a deep breath. "What would y'all think about having a canned food drive at school for our food bank? Everybody could help. Bonnie, you could mention it when you do morning announcements. And Sam stopped drawing, but he didn't look up. "You're such an amazing artist. You could make a poster. You know, I can't draw worth beans." She held up her picture to prove it, and both her friends laughed. He looked up at Rosie and saw they were both grinning at him, Rosie and Spotty. Sam flipped his paper over and he sketched out a new idea. "Sam, that's perfect." Spotty said, "Yeah, but what should we put on it?" At the top, Sam wrote, "Give to the food drive." And at the bottom, Rosie wrote, "Do what you can." Rosie's cap flap, flap as she rushed home. Now she could answer the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" She would tilt her head and say, I'm Rosie the Red. I'm happy to be me. There's no telling what I'll do next. Rosie the Red's a pretty good character. So we don't have any children to sign up today to sing out? No little children to go under our bridge. But, oh, okay. Affirmation. Izzy, you want to help us in the affirmation? Izzy, you want to? You don't have to.
Izzy.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Izzy and the grown-ups can help us with doing our children's affirmation.
We are Unitarian Universalist, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands.
And now who knows how to sing the song? We don't have music on our camera. Yeah. We can do it.
Beneath our arms, we shelter you. You warm our hearts as you pass through. May our love guide you as you go, to help you learn and help you grow.
Thank you. So in a little bit, we're going to hear from Rob Windoffer, who is going to share with us some of his life journey that brought him to this point, and maybe look ahead with us a little at what might come next. So we look forward to hearing from Rob. Before that, we'll have a few moments of meditation, and I have some words I wanted to share with you before we go into meditation. This is from our hymnal, number 688, words from Nancy Wood. Hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even if it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to my hand, even when I have gone away from you. I'm very pleased to invite Rob to come to the pulpit and share with us.
I'm not sure if she left that word up there for a reason. Hopefully I'll do. Now the good news is that I'm relatively low tech, so you're not going to have to worry about a PowerPoint not working or something, because I got a piece of paper, so that's always going to get what I need out of it. It's really an honor and a privilege to be able to share with you today. I kind of serve as a little bit of a cautionary tale because, I don't know, what, 2 months or so ago I shared the first love and concern, or joy and concern, and I did a stone. And Jane, who happened to notice isn't here today, of course, because she knew I probably was going to tell this story. She wrote me just a sweet email and just very gently explained to me that format is not where you tell a long story. And I tend to tell long stories. But she said, Rob, really that's just a little quick hit, just tell this, because I told a story about the girl at the hospital and I got a chance to talk to her about blah, 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 blah. So then Jane segued into, hey, but if you really want to tell your story, why don't you take a date a couple of months from now? So she, slotted me right in there before I had that happen. So that's how I ended up here today. And I really had some interesting things happen since I've been in Statesboro. One of them is I have, over the years of my journey, which I'm going to share some of course, I've learned to embrace sort of the mystical aspect of life, kind of the universe and things that are beyond our understanding, but they tend to have some sort of impact on us, right? So lo and behold, today is to the date 6 months since I moved to Statesboro. And I didn't realize that until last week. I look at the calendar and I go, something feels weird about this or whatever. So I started, March the 18th on a Sunday is when I drove into Statesboro. So here we are in August, it's 6 months. Now I don't know if 6 months means anything, but it's like a little bitty anniversary type of deal, So I'm glad that I've had an opportunity, and it freaks me out a little bit that it's been 6 months. I don't know if any of you remember the first Sunday I came here. It was the second Sunday I'd been in Statesboro. And that seemed just like last week. And now here I am 6 months later. So again, it's fun to share that with you, even though it's gone a little too quickly from my understanding. But another little item I wanted to share with you about who I am and how I got here. Some of you know a little bit of this story, but I have lived in 21 different cities or towns in my life. 21. Now that's a lot. I'm not young, but that's a lot of towns. And some of them happened in rapid succession because of my dad's work or change of jobs or whatever. I went to one year I went to 3 different schools in 1 year. Now that turned into me being able to meet new people, pretty easily, so that's kind of helped a little bit. But I don't know, I've met people. Jane was born and raised in Statesboro. I met somebody the other night at a function, born and raised in Statesboro. 21 different places I've lived. So that makes up a little bit of who I am and how I got here and how I relate to people and to situations. And it's just kind of started the makeup of who I am. My conversation today about my spiritual journey is going to be centered around the faith that I was raised in, which is Christianity. I think Michael shared the role that particular faith played in his life in a positive way as well. But so those of you who come from that background, you'll be able to relate some. If you don't, if you come from a non-Christian background or an Eastern religion of some type, it may be kind of strange to you. But that's from my perspective. That's what I was born and raised in. So I'm going to kind of relate back to that. And afterwards, we're going to have a time to talk and share a little bit. And if you've got questions about how that differs from what you've experienced, I hope that you'll share that with us as we go through that. My dad was an ordained minister in the Church of the Nazarene, which is a Protestant denomination, and I can share a little bit of that if that would help people, but it came out of the history of the Methodist Church, which was born of a different ministry as well in the past. And that's one of the things as a kid growing up, I kept looking around going, well, we're all Christians. Why do we have the Methodists and the Nazarenes and the Baptists and the Church of Christ and the Presbyterians and that's part of what led me down my path. It's brought me to today. But so as I'm walking through this history of my church and what my dad did, him being an ordained minister was a blessing and a curse in the sense that he was a great dad. He got all the important things right. He didn't get everything right, but the important stuff he got right. I've got 2 older sisters, and they're wonderful women, and they're still alive, and I go see them often. That's part of why I moved here, obviously. But his ministry led him into a lot of areas that, as I've gotten older, I realized were really, really important to my formation, meaning that I'll give you a quick story. We had a memorial service. He was cremated. A month later, we had a memorial service. And his pastor at the time, invited anyone who wanted to give a little word about my dad to do so. And there were 4 or 5 people that stood up. And all of them would be considered what we would look at as sort of like non-influential members. There weren't any mayors that talked, no wealthy businessmen. There were people, one guy was came out of the mission there in Jacksonville. Another guy came out. And it was all these simple, down-to-earth people that somehow my dad had a connection to. And I never even met these people, right? So he was always at that level of ministering to people like that. And he was never pastored a huge church. It was always a smaller congregation. He usually would teach. He also had an education degree, so he would be a guidance counselor or a teacher. I had one year, and this may say something about me, I don't know. I had one year where he was the guidance counselor at my middle school. He was the music director at our church, and he taught my Sunday school class. Now, you're talking about being inundated with too much dad. That was way too much dad, for a sixth grader especially, right? But he was a great man and a great dad in all important ways, and that's kind of where my heritage came out of. And again, the Nazarene Church has been around, I think, officially formed around 1901, 02. So it's a relatively new denomination. And much older Protestant denominations have been around a lot longer. That's kind of the background of where we came out. Both of my parents were very talented musically. My family, my sisters both play and sing. I play and sing. We actually, when I was very young, we would do different concerts at different churches for weekend revivals, and we kind of joked about it. And when I was really young, it was a lot of fun. As I got a little bit older, it became a little embarrassing because you don't really dig your mom and dad. You start getting to 13, 14, 15, and it's like, So I kind of dropped out after I hit the teenage years. But before that, we played and sang around. And I was part of little musical groups. I'd form up with my buddies, and we'd do stuff at youth camps and teen gatherings, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I got the musical piece of who I was. But as I was growing up, as most of us do, we start to ask questions about the things that we're connected to. So whether it's our religious connection or school or our friends, our families. And I didn't really have any deep theological questions as a kid, but I was curious as to why we believed what we did and why we did the things we did. Why did we read the Bible? Why did we go to church every Sunday morning, night, and Wednesday? And then if we had a revival, does anybody know what a revival was back in the day? I remember sometimes they'd get started and they might say, we're going to have a week of revival. Well, 3 weeks later, we're still having a revival. And we're going every night. When you're the preacher's kid, you don't go, I don't feel like going. No. You go every night, 3 weeks. So all of that stuff started happening, and I was questioning things. And like most people, I believe, you have these ups and downs where you're trying to figure out, why do I believe this, and where did I get this from, and why is it important? And I struggled quite a bit as a teenager and as a college student and even a young adult with, do I really understand what I'm professing to believe? And my big turning point came as I got probably into my mid-20s, late 20s, and I sort of reached this point of questioning why I believed what I did, and if I was going to believe it, then I really needed to live it and use it as an example for people and talk about it and be proud of it. And I couldn't bring myself to do any of that. I was more or less living off my heritage of what I've been raised to believe and why I believed it. And so one of the big turns that I took, and this was when I was still a professing Christian at the time, was to find out why I believed what I did. Where did I get my belief system from? So I started kind of pulling back the pieces of the onion, looking at what I uncovered. And I started with the Bible, because that's kind of, to me, was where all of this stuff originated. That's where we got our teachings. That's where we got our scripture. That's where we got all of our morality. Everything was out of the Bible. And I have to confess, I was almost 30 years old before I ever thought, well, where did this book come from? And why do we put so much credence in it? And why do I believe these things if I don't even know where it came from? I mean, it could have been a phone book for all I care, right? I was just raised to believe it. You just believe it. And so I started looking into the origins of the Bible, and it's not, I'm not putting down Christianity other than to say that the way I was raised was that you don't question the Bible. The Bible is what it is. It's God's Word. It's been passed down for us to interpret and incorporate in our lives. Well, there are many, many very upstanding Christian scholars that have come to understand and document that the Bible as we know it came about in a lot of different ways through different means and different translations. And I'm not denigrating the Bible, because I'm sure we have people here in the congregation that you could be Christians for all I know. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, in order to understand what you believe, you have to kind of know what the origins of whatever it is. And people of other faiths do the same thing. You know, you have the Jewish faith, they look at the Torah, they look at the Islamic faith looks at their scriptures, holy scriptures, their sacred writings, as they all do. So for me, it was trying to understand, what is this book? Where did it come from? How does it relate to me? Do I really believe what I've been taught to believe? And over the course of about, it probably was a year and a half or 2 years of reading, studying various people. There's a gentleman out of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, he's no longer a professing Christian, but he was at the time, and he began looking at the discrepancies between various scriptures, and not that it made them right or wrong, but it's just like, this doesn't really connect the way that we've been told that it connects. So after a couple of years, I sort of ended up at the point of saying, I just can't continue to profess something that I don't wholeheartedly believe, and I'm willing to share with other people. And that was a tough situation to share with my parents. They were both still alive, lifelong professing Christians, raised me in that faith, my sisters, and for me to have that conversation with Mom, Dad, something I need to talk to you about. And the first step was to tell them that I no longer went to the Nazarene church. And you would have thought that caused an earthquake. What? I mean, the look I got was like, what? They kind of got over that, and we moved on to, deeper issues. Now, I'm glad to say that over the course of time, as I still lived my life, and I believe I became a more genuine person, and the things that I did espouse, I actually believed and lived and demonstrated to other people in my life. As that went on, even my mom especially, she got to a point of realizing that it was a genuine transformation. It wasn't something I was doing just to rebel. We've all got friends that rebel against certain things, whether it's society or religion or politics, or just because they just want to rebel. They don't really have a desire to become better or become different. They just want to rebel. So they began to understand that was a genuine thing. And that started the transition probably around the time I was 30-ish, maybe early 30s. So here I am, just turned 66 this year, and I have felt much better about my life and the people and the little story I told, and Jane so lovingly admonished me about how long I took. I never did anything like that prior to dropping sort of the facade of being religious. And now, if I talk to people, I've told Sherry this, I've told Jane this. If I talk to somebody now and they just start talking about their life, I'm very, very comfortable just talking about who I am and why I live the way I do and our church. And I'm not pushing anything other than to say, just find your genuine starting point. What is it about what you believe and why you believe it and how do you live it? And that's what makes the transformation. It's not, I'm right and you're wrong, or this is right and that's wrong. And that has really impacted my life in a very, very powerful way. And I think, I look back on it and I can't believe that much time has passed and all the stuff I've read and thought about and talked to people about. When I started down the path, I was just miserable. I was just trying to find an answer to anything. And here I am all these years later, and answers come a little bit at a time. And I meet new people, and they bring me answers. And things happen, and you go, wow. That would have never happened had I not been open to that. And I was judgmental in the sense that, we all have our own little answers to things, right? And so if somebody wasn't living the way I thought they should live, or wasn't demonstrating certain characteristics I thought, then you tend to judge people like that. And all that's gone. I haven't done that in forever. And it makes for a much better life for me and the people that are in my life. So that's been an important transformation for me. One thing I wanted to touch on, it's kind of an interesting aspect of my life. I've never been a big fan of Hollywood, but believe it or not, there are 3 movies that had an impact on me, and they're all got a central theme, which I didn't really realize until quite a few years later after I started thinking about it. And I'm going to give you the 3 movies and give you the time frame that it happened, and then I'm going to tell you how it had an impact on me. The first one is the movie that starred Dustin Hoffman called Little Big Man, 1970. So I was, 7th grade? I didn't see it at the time, but I saw it later in college. I don't know, I was probably trying to impress some girl on a date. And, hey, let's watch a movie with Dustin Hoffman. So that's one of them. The second one was Dances with Wolves, which came out in 1990. And then in 94 came Legends of the Fall. Now, at the time, I didn't put all this together, but all of them dealt with a theme, an underlying subtext of the mistreatment of indigenous people. And I grew up, look at me. Do I look like the typical Southern guy? Absolutely. I'm the right gender at the right time, with the right skin color, all this stuff. And this stuff didn't really click with me. But when I saw these movies, I started thinking, is that really part of our country's history? Is that really something that really... So I started looking into it. Is this just Hollywood writing a script or whatever? So those movies had an impact on me in the sense of making me much more culturally sensitive. And that doesn't mean I'm, the perfect person. But I sure don't think the way that I used to about a lot of the things that have gone on and are still going on in our country and in our culture. That I, as a person of what my faith is, I have a responsibility to speak up about that and to bring some enlightenment when I get a chance. So those were kind of funny that I looked at that, and when I was putting together my thoughts for this talk this morning, I thought, they're not going to believe that, I was influenced by 3 movies about indigenous people from Hollywood. But that's kind of what happened. And I've been proud to use that, kind of that foundation of awareness going forward in my life. It's made me a much, much better person. And certainly in Statesboro and in our country, we're finding ourselves facing a lot of challenges, both culturally and politically and economically. We've got a lot of situations, the story that Sherry read this morning about people that are dealing with needs in their life. And we don't think, hopefully, that it's that big of a deal, but it is. When someone's in a wealthy nation like ours and they have trouble, keeping food in their pantry, that's an issue. And luckily, we as Unitarians and as people in our community are sensitive and aware of that. So that's my big Hollywood influence, or one of those 3 movies. And I don't really watch that many movies, but I'll kind of watch those 3 if they ever come up, and anything So part of what led me down this path as well was when I moved in 83, I think it was, I moved to California, and I became a member of a Nazarene church there. It was sort of one of the initial churches in the denomination, and it's still there. It's now become primarily a Hispanic congregation because the neighborhood, just turned in Los Angeles. I don't know, the number is something like 80% of the population in the city is Hispanic. So we had this big church building, and the English-speaking congregation was dwindling, and the Spanish was growing, and so they just kind of flipped it. But that was where I sort of got my tour of duty, so to speak, was living in Los Angeles for 8 years. Because there's not much that you can't see or experience in Los Angeles, especially at the time. So that was sort of another turning point that got me on this path of trying to understand why I believed what I did and why I was living the way that I was living. That sort of brings me to the point in time that I'm in now in Statesboro. And some of you, even when I first met you, and they said, "So where did you move from?" I said, "Oh, I moved here from Las Vegas." And they'd look at me like, "What? You know, what in the world brought you to Statesboro?" And I explained about my family and being closer, and wanting to be out of a bigger city, you know, just in a smaller whatever. And I really believe, I've told Jane this several times, that hardly a day goes by where I don't feel like something happens to just affirm the fact that I'm in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. And I can't really explain it. You know, when I looked at Statesboro coming here, I was like, oh, college town. They're going to have, you know, some good restaurants. They'll have some good music. It's close to the beach if I want to go, but it's not at the beach type of thing, you know. But other than that, I have no idea. I knew there was I did look and see there was a Unitarian congregation which played into my decision, obviously. Got an Aldi which played into my decision. So those kinds of things, but I don't know. Again, I approach every day with, what is today going to hold that I'm not aware of? I'm just open to it. And that really gives me the opportunity to talk to people and meet people. And I may go to a cultural function here or a civic function. Sherry and I kind of laughed the first couple of months. It seemed like every other day she and I were showing up at the same events. You know, it's like, oh, hey, you know. I think she thought I was following her around town or something. I was like, oh yeah, you're here too. But I just want to kind of wrap this up by saying I'm just so grateful and thankful to be a part of this congregation, this group. And you've already become very special to me. I talk to everybody about everybody. I mean, I've got a buddy of mine who's just a wonderful, he's actually my best friend in the world, and he's a Catholic and just a wonderful guy. And when I started attending the Unitarian Church back several years ago, I had a gap there because I moved and I didn't want to get involved with the congregation and pull up stakes and leave again. So I told him when I got to Statesboro, I go, yeah, I said they got a nice Unitarian congregation. He goes, man, he says, I'm going to have to do some research on these people. He said, what kind of cult is that? He starts laughing. He knows better, but he starts laughing. So those kinds of things that are impacting my life today, and you people are part of that, and I'm glad for that, and I'm happy for that. And I hope that as we continue to go forward a little bit, that we can start drawing upon the things that make us all really unique. Because there aren't a lot of gatherings of any kind where the uniqueness is rewarded, or is, you know, you're kind of, everybody wants you to conform a little bit, you know, become kind of faceless, you know, type of thing. And I love that about the Unitarian Church, that that's not at all what this is about. So thank you again for allowing me to share a little bit. I know it's a little bit of rattling, but I can talk. If you ever want to talk, just get me going. And of course, Jane was very sweet. She pointed that out as well. But we're going to have a little round table after. If you want to stay around and ask me anything about what I said, or share something about your own experience, your own journey, so to speak. That's the other thing I was talking to Sherry the other day is. When you feel like you're on a journey, it feels so much more positive than I've arrived. You know, so a lot of people think they get to a certain point in their spiritual life where they've arrived. Well, I don't know. I think the journey is much more exciting and much more challenging and much more rewarding And, James always talking big about, hey, that's the great thing about Unitarians. You can change your mind. If you get to a point to where you say, you know what, I've been thinking about this, and I think I've grown beyond that, or I think I believe a little bit, and it's okay. Nobody's going to throw a book at you and say, oh, that's not in our book of rules or whatever, and I think that's great. So thank you again. I'll be sticking around, and Sherry will be too, and so I'll turn it back over to Sherry if you're ready to go. And no problems with PowerPoint, didn't you?
Thank you, Rob. And yes, we will have our afterthought. So at the end of the service, we'll have time to go get a cup of coffee, visit a minute, and then come back and circle up for afterthoughts discussion. And now is the time of the service for the sharing of our gifts and pledges. As Abby reminded us, anything that's not designated as your pledge, half of it will go to help support Statesboro, the Joe Brandon Pantry at the Statesboro Food Bank. These gifts are received and appreciated. There is a time in our service for the sharing of our joys and concerns. I will remind us that we're on Facebook Live. You're welcome to come and share, and what you share will be visible over Facebook Live and will be in the recording that will come up on our website later. If you have anything that feels too sensitive or tender to want to share it publicly, know that you can reach out to others in the congregation, to me, Pastoral Care Associate, to Jane via text. Randy, our intern, Randy Wash, is also offering pastoral care. But now is the time. If you have a joy or a concern you'd like to share with the group today, please come down, light a candle, place a stone, or speak from your seat if you prefer.
This is probably neither a joy nor a concern, really, or somehow falls in the middle. There's a little both. I could decide. I thought possibly of laying it till announcements. It's more like an announcement in a way, but it's a very personal announcement. Some of you know that I was trying to be a physics major, and I paid all my fees and signed up this semester, and then I said, I just can't. So I have dropped out for the time being, and now I'm busy running around trying to pick the brains of my professors and saying, isn't there some book that I could just read? So I just want people to know, just as a plain announcement, and I guess I will light a candle in representation of the fact that this is a point of enlightenment of some sort. Of course, I'm putting various greenhouse gases in the atmosphere with my candle.
Thank you, Paul. Others? Now remind us, please, if you will, speak your name aloud as we would continue to get to know one another.
So I'm Abby Thompson, and I'm going to light a candle because John and I celebrated our 27th anniversary. It's been a journey. I'm thankful for it. And I'm also going to light another candle for this one because John may not appreciate me giving away the big secret. Happy birthday this week, and he'll be 50.
Baby.
They act like that's old. Thank you, Ed. Do we have others?
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Richard. I just wanted, I guess, to drop a stone and light a candle
keep in mind, Miss Bella's not been feeling well the last couple of weeks. You know, and on top of that, her husband had knee surgery on Monday. So they have physical therapy that comes out, but right now she is the maid, as she says. So she spends a lot of time helping him get around and watching, make sure all that. So here, just keep them in your thoughts. But joy is that the surgery went well. They just kept him one night and sent him home to her, and she's like,
Thank you, Richard. Are there others? Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning.
I'm here on behalf of my wife, who recently passed away, August 10th. She was a very, very wonderful lady, and I loved her for 17 years. She'd always expressed that she wanted to come to this church. Unfortunately, she never did. She'd been ill and had a lot of health problems the last few years, but she was never a big fan of typical evangelical churches, so she was intent on wanting to come. So I wanted to look for her and ask for your thoughts and prayers for her children who are scattered around the country. And just wanted to thank everyone for that.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
What was your wife's name?
DBSC.
DBS?
DBSD.
DBST.
Yes, the service is going to be the 27th, August 27th, at Joyner Anderson. Just wanted to come by today and let everyone know that she did want to come to this church.
If you would like to pass along any details for the service, I'm sure several of us would be happy to and support you.
Okay. It's going to be the 27th at Joyner Anderson in Statesboro. I think it's going to be 3 o'clock, I think. Yeah, 3 o'clock. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Vince.
I'm Connie Ressler. I would like to send Bella, I think her last name is Lawrence, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to send her a get well card, but I don't know her address. So if anyone could give me her address, I would like to send her a get well card. And I'm wondering what kind of knee surgery is she having a let's see, I had it, a knee joint replacement, is that
Her husband had surgery, and she's taking care of him.
Oh, so she's not having the surgery, her husband is.
Her husband just had surgery, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
She's gonna have it
I would say that.
Thank you, Connie.
Let's see if I can make it back to my seat without falling on my face.
Are there others?
I'll show. This is for Rob,
This is for,
our speaker.
oh, yes.
So a long time ago, my grandmother had a knee replacement surgery, and I was at my parents' house, and I got a call from my grandmother, and she said, "You gotta come over here. My knee is beeping." So I think, I need to let the doctor know that it's trying to send an alarm about something's wrong. I said, well, that sounds unusual. So I went over to my grandmother's house, and I got there and waiting, and I hear a beep, beep, and she says, there it is. I said, well, Granny, I don't think that's your knee. So that's a smoke alarm. I think we need to change it.
Thank you, John. tempted here. You know, we set a precedent to tell stories to rejoice and we'll sign you up for later.
It wasn't long enough.
Are there others who'd like to speak? I'm very pleased to welcome back Maddie May. Many of you heard that she had an accident. She's on crutches now and is facing surgery. We were so glad she's able to be back with us.
Thank you.
And then I do want to light a final candle. As Rob reminded us, we want folks to find us. Folks need a spiritual home. And so we want to be bold in sharing what we have here, not because we're trying to tell other people what they need, but just to make folks aware of what's available and that we are open to all who are open to all. So may that be so. Join me for a moment of quiet or prayer. We hold in our hearts the joys and the concerns that have been expressed here today. We send love and light to all those in need, and solace to those who are mourning. We're grateful for returning health. We're patient and compassionate with those who are still in pain or suffering. May we remember this is sacred space where we come together to love and honor and uphold one another, to be the hands on the earth who help one another. May that ever be so. Amen. And blessed be. And so, if our singers among us will help, and I apologize for not finding the slide set that had the music with it, but thank you all for chiming in and us singing together without our musical accompaniment. So, as you're able and willing, please rise, and we will sing together the Spirit of God. Maybe. We extinguish this flame without the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together in heaven. And do we have announcements to share this morning? Let's come up and talk about Ellen.
There's a flyer that Abby printed that if you want to take some to hang up around town, there hopefully recruit some more people to join us. We've been working very hard on that library system. So I think probably not this week, but maybe the week after. If people want to stay a little bit late after church, we could use some help just going through the books and helping write out the checkout cards. Be helpful if we have more people.
Thank you. What is the flyer? I'm sorry.
I only have one to share with Martha first, and then I haven't made any extra copies, so let me do that first, and then I will happily show you. But it is a flyer that has some photos of events we've done, and then also information about our time every Sunday. So it's just a general informational be our giver service.
To help us spread the good news, our good news.
And it's a very attractive flag. Lots of color. Hoping to get a color copy so we can include all the color.
People can take a picture of it.
Yeah.
So like post online.
Yeah. That's
Just
I had one other announcement related to the food bank. I know that we used to meet, I think, twice a week over at the First Presbyterian Church when we're helping make side lunches. Now that the food bank has moved, we're sort of centering our resources and feeding people in our community there. And I don't know if we want to discuss or if you're interested in maybe having a day or of the month or a couple days of the month where we go over there, maybe as a group one morning a week and help in the food bank. They do take volunteers to help put food on the shelves. So in the spirit of their newness and also helping them, maybe we can meet there and provide some small group activities.
So if you're able and willing to go and help at the food bank as they're getting set up, let Abby know, and maybe a group of us could go and do that. They're working toward being open and serving every day. And so they will be calling on us and the groups that we participated in earlier, like Rebecca's Cafe, to do that. But at this point, they're not there yet. They still have to finish the building, and they still need to organize all of that. But they do need help just getting things on the shelf, like Abby's talking about, and getting it all set up. So anybody who's able and willing to do that, Abby will coordinate. Maybe we can do it weekly until we get back to our monthly meal making and whatever it might turn out to be. Thank you. And we have coffee and refreshments. I think Kathy baked this morning before church. Nice. And Richard got coffee going. So we will send ourselves out and have refreshments and then come back. We'll circle up in here by 11:45 for our afterthoughts discussion. Oh.